Hello, Patreon. So for those of you who missed our um, Zoom live Q&A, where I could kind of answer questions, kind of talk about parent concerns and things like that, I just am going to record this kind of brief overview of the things I prepared in advance based on what people sent in to me. So a lot of this is going off of the different um, lesson plans that you see online right now. There's these big schedules with like hour long blocks or even like 45-minute long blocks, half hour long blocks. And for certain age groups, that could be a little bit problematic because the experts say that a child's attention span is 2 to 3 minutes per year of life. So for a 2-year-old, their attention span on a specific activity in general is going to only be about 4 to 6 minutes. Um, that's a little different from when you look at your child's schedule at school. That's factoring in, different groups. Different groups are switching in and out of the activity. There are multiple activities going on at the same time, and that's just not something that, you're going to be able to do at home. That's going to be really complicated. That's going to be stressful to you to try to build a curriculum as rigorous as people who have been doing this for years and years and adding on. That's going to be hard on you as a parent if that's not something that you've already been doing. So, um, I just kind of wanted to highlight those different things just so parents weren't having concerns, feeling like they didn't plan enough in the day, as well as talk about some of the different like areas of learning, how you can easily do it at home, as well as a couple of little tricks. So the first thing to break up the schedule, I personally, just the way that my mind functions, I like having a set schedule. For you, you're going to have lots of downtime in between your different chunks depending on your child's age. Even a 6-year-old really is not going to focus on a subject in a way that their brain naturally does for more than 12 to 18 minutes. So you could maybe, get your child to really work really hard on a certain thing for 20 minutes, maybe, if they're 6 or elementary age. For younger, it gets even harder because 4-year-old is only going to have an attention span really like focused in and invested in something for maybe 8 to 12 minutes. And of course, that's depending on the child and depending on what the project is. So if you plan the day by little half-hour increments, it's good to think about having transition activities, things that are not out or not available or offered all the time that you can pull out through the day that are an option for you as you are trying to get something done, trying to throw the laundry in, trying to cook some food, just as a little way for you to give yourself some extra time. That could be what we like to call bucket toys or bucket choices. So bucket toys or bucket choices are, bins. I've also heard them called busy bins. Different activities in a bucket that you or a container of any kind of box that you can easily put out and take back in, and then that way you are able to rotate these different activities in and out of the child's day without you personally, cutting out the different things. We're going to make a plant, so we have to cut out different parts of plants. That's hard, and that's going to be a lot of work on you, especially if you are right now still working from home, especially if you are working from home and you are a teacher. If you are the parent of an early education age child, that's going to be really intense on you. So just make it easy. If you break up the day into blocks, into these different learning areas, just plan to also have things that you can take out in the middle, or you can look up different transition activities. Sometimes great transition activities would be um, you know, playing a dancing song on YouTube, not including the video, just doing the dancing part, or doing some jumping jacks, or that's the time where you pull out a book. Whatever your child is interested in, that can be a quick activity. Again, depending on their age range, if they're early education age, they're only going to have a focus of 3 to maybe 15 minutes. So going with that, I have some different areas that you can look at for like different areas of learning for your child. You can also just look up online. You can look up an pre-K lesson plan, preschool lesson plan, toddler lesson plan. Those are not the same as if you work in elementary or a middle school. Different categories, different way of writing it out. And the biggest thing is you are not instructing the child. So if the activity is blocks and building towers, you can model it and you can show the child, this is how I'm going to model these things. This is how I'm going to do these blocks. Then it's up to the child at that point if they're going to do a tower or if they're going to do something else. You can lay down some gentle guidelines like don't throw the blocks, don't kick the blocks. You can talk about how to be safe with the blocks, but from there, that's really up to them. And that's another thing that's different from elementary age, middle school, high school age, just how you're approaching the learning and how it's instructed. Because a lot of it is you setting something up so the child can then explore it themselves, and where they take it is up to them. When you're looking at art, that's a big one. I know families want to bring art to home, and I agree, super important. I think you absolutely should bring art into your home. Really look online for process-based art, not project-based art. Projects are something we do at school, and they're cute and they're wonderful, and we send it home to you, the parent, and you love it and you can hang it up. You can aim for one project a week, something that's going to require you to prep things in advance. As an art teacher, not every art class has something that is a project. A lot of it is very processed. A lot of it is talking about the idea behind it, or the I'm saying actor, the artist behind it. That's because it is a lot of work to do a lot of projects. It's also not the same developmentally for a child. As they get older, 3 and up, it's good to have projects because you have to learn step by step how to do something, and that understanding of learning this step, then I'm going to do this step, that autonomy is good for a child's development. But in terms of art, not letting the child explore and not letting them have the opportunity to make these connections themselves can also be a little detrimental. It also will be extremely complicated for you. So just don't focus so much on projects and look at a lot of process art. There are lots of ways that you can make paint at home. You can make a bunch of different kind of paints, and you could paint on the table and then just wipe it up. You can put saran wrap on the table and they can go crazy, and then you can wipe it up. You can put shaving cream on your table and then they can explore and draw with it, and then they can clean it up. And any of these different mediums and anything you're working on, you can switch out the different objects. You can manipulate the shaving cream with a car, and you can draw designs with the wheels and then clean it up. You can use shaving cream, you can use a popsicle stick, you can use a pencil, you can use any object from your house. You can paint with fruit, you can paint with cuts from vegetables, you can paint with the end of the celery that you just chopped up yesterday, and now you're using the end of it to make stamps. That's really the big focus of process art, is giving the child some different things to use. You can say, this is how I like to use this, and then some gentle guidelines of keep it on the paper. You can make whatever you want, and then just let them go for it. Because for the most part, a child is not going to be really concerned about what they're making, and that is a higher level thinking thing anyway. For your child to be able to say, look at this, I made a rabbit, and have it be a rabbit and have it look like a rabbit, and having them think I'm making a rabbit and then draw parts of a rabbit, that's a higher level thinking thing. So in preschool, especially young preschool, especially toddlers, if you ask, what are you making? What is that? They might not even know. They might just still be exploring the medium, exploring making lines, making circles, things like that. What's great in art is if you don't ask questions like that as much as asking things like, or saying things that you observe. You can say, I really like how slowly and carefully you are painting right now. I like the way that you are making those lines. I like the way that you have mixed these two paints. Oh, I see that you've made purple paint on your paper now. You can say those things. It's not a comment on their art. You are not there to, critique their art. And that's a big piece of process art, which I think is extremely important. Music. You don't need to be a singer to sing. Lots of educators will tell you that. Just sing. If you don't want to sing, there's tons of chants. Just make up the chants. Watch YouTube and learn the chants and then do them that way. You can play Guess the Song, where you make a playlist on your Spotify of songs that your kid knows, and then you listen to them with you guys listen with your eyes shut, and then they have to guess what the song is. That listening to notes and listening to words is a great way to work on phonemic awareness, which ties into literacy. So you definitely should do that. You could do creating dance moves. That's going to work on your gross motor while also working on music, which is great. When you're looking at physical activity, there's two different parts when you're talking about physical activity, because you're going to have fine motor and gross motor. So fine motor is like the tiny actions. So that's holding a pen, manipulating a pen, picking something up, grabbing, dropping, anything basic. I mean, a lot of it is largely with your hands, but any tiny actions, those come in handy, especially later on as they're getting older, because that's going to help determine, hand strength and comfortability using your hands, which is going to affect how well they write, or just how quickly they learn how to write. So there are lots of little easy things you can do at home. Even something so simple and easy as putting beans on the counter and having them pick up one bean at a time and drop them in the cup. And if you model that ahead of time, picking up one and say, I've got one bean, and then drop it in the cup, drop, I've got one bean, drop, they're likely to copy you anyway and then to do it that way. Again, they might not do it that way. They might try to use their whole hand and try to dump it in that way. The child's learning is going to happen however they're going to choose to learn. But no matter what, in that case, they're working on thinking and manipulating and processing these different objects. That's still helping them develop, and that's still important. If you have Play-Doh scissors, you can make different Play-Dohs or anything at all, and just practicing that cutting, that's a big, very important fine motor skill. And I really, really recommend that you try to incorporate that if you haven't. If your child's old enough to use scissors, then incorporating as much scissor time as you can is really important. Just give them scrap paper and let them cut it. Give them paper bags and let them cut it. Anything you can find that they can cut, let them cut it. That's great for your hands. That's really important. Helps them develop their fine motor skills. Awesome. If you have tongs and they can practice grabbing things, if you have tweezers and they can grab things, that's all awesome fine motor stuff. And it doesn't have to be pretty or exciting or fun, right? Because we know their attention span is only so big. This is not something that has to look pretty. It doesn't need to be thematic. It's just learning. It's just learning and giving them opportunities to manipulate things and use things that maybe they've used before and are using in different ways, or things they've never used before. Gross motor, that's like your big actions. That's like working on physical activity, dance parties, doing jumping jacks. If you look online at different creative movement activities for young children, any of those count basically as gross motor. Anything where you're throwing, folding up your socks, and throwing them into a laundry basket from as far away as humanly possible. That's a fun, silly, gross motor thing. If you want to give it a theme and say that you are Catboy and you are throwing Catboy objects into a thing, then you're doing that. And then it's a game and it's fun. They're working on that throwing skill. They're working on that coordination. They're working on the ability to do something potentially across their body, which is an important developmental skill that young children will learn. Looking up yoga online, there's tons of kid yoga. It's not, necessarily doing the poses, although there is the poses with different names. There's also activities like make your legs into a sandwich that are yoga and stretching and using that good gross motor without bringing that yoga terminology in for kids who are too young for that. Wall push-ups, hopping cushion to cushion on the ground, hopping on pieces of paper on the ground, balancing on different colored pieces of tape that you tape to the ground. My favorite thing as a former creative movement instructor was painter's tape. You can look up painter's tape activities for preschoolers, and there's tons. You can make obstacle courses by putting out different obstacle courses. You can do jump the brook, where they have to jump across and not touch the tape. You can put it up on the wall in a different crazy pattern and throw objects at that. And you can play spider web and try to get objects to stick to the spider web. Tons of stuff, maybe things you find at home. But exploring creative movement is a great indoor way. In New Hampshire, we are required to do 60 minutes of outdoor time a day. And something that might be different from what you're used to at home is that we don't go outside to play a certain thing. The reason teachers are standing and watching the kids is because that's their time to explore the outdoors. So if you have a place where you can go outside and just watch your child and let them run around, let them explore things. If you have a wooded area where they can explore and step on sticks, and you can safely instruct them how to navigate this area, that's an awesome way to include outdoor time as well as gross motor. You can break up the outdoor time into 4 15-minute segments. Where I live in the city, it might not be safe for me to be around with a young toddler. There might not be a lot of options. So even just breaking it up into 4 15-minute walks in your day, even if you can break it into 2 half-hour blocks in your day, even if it's downpouring and you load the child up in some clothes and then put on a rain hat and put on some boots and go jump around outside and just get totally soaking wet and then come inside. That's an awesome way to include that outside time. That's an activity. Rain is free when you can get it. Things like that, where they're just exploring the outdoors. You are not trying to teach them something. They are just learning naturally on their own. That is awesome. Something we do a lot at school is dramatic play. So dramatic play is when teachers will set up an area kind of based on a real life location, and then the children are free to kind of play through it in their own way, in their own speed. Something that you might have at home that you might not call a dramatic play area would be a play kitchen. You might have plastic foods. Your child might start just be getting to the age where they're going to put the foods on there, they're going to serve it to you. That's an awesome activity. So you can do that. Any place that they go to in the regular day, you can kind of set up a small space, a little area in your house and kind of talk your child through what you're putting there, and then let them explore it. So you could set up a school. You could, on the desk, put some paper and some different things. You can give the child a clipboard and say, this is, if you want to be the teacher, you can be the teacher, and you can teach your brother or sister, or you can teach me. You could do grocery store, just putting empty boxes from old groceries somewhere on a shelf, and they can put them in a reusable bag. If you don't have a reusable bag, you can tie the bottom of a t-shirt, and then use the armholes as kind of the holding part. You could set up Target. If you guys really like to talk about Target, you can set up a Target, and they can do dramatic play, and they can put on a red shirt and work at Target if that's something they're really into. You can do the beach, and they can put on their bathing suit and put out towels, and something like that. They could read a book in the sun. Camping, and they can use a tent. It could be, you can set up a laundromat with some boxes, some old clothes that they can put in some kind of basket, put in a dryer. They can practice their folding however they want to do it. You can set up a gym if they've been to the gym before. You can add in these dramatic play areas some kind of dressing up clothing. So that doesn't mean, the Elsa dress. It can include the Elsa dress. It just doesn't have to have the Elsa dress. This could just be, different hats that the child can put on that fit the scenario. Different purses. Very young toddlers really like those Ipsy subscriber-based makeup bags because they have zippers on them and they can carry them around. Different scarves if you have scarves. Anything like that they can add on and easily put on and off themselves is awesome to include in any dramatic play area. Even if that means you do set up a grocery store and therefore they're carrying a bunch of bags and wearing a scarf on their head. That's them kind of working through the scene, kind of playing through it, and that's how they're going to learn, and that's great. That's something that doesn't require you to do a ton of setup. You might just need to, ahead of time, kind of have everything ready, all the dramatic play clothing items, and then maybe at nap time you can kind of, on a Amazon box, just draw a little something and set it up and talk through, like, oh, this is a washing machine, this is the dryer, you can put the clothes in and out of it. Literacy, that's a little harder, and I can do a much longer literacy video if that's what people are interested in. It's also hard for me in a broad video to talk about literacy because your child could be at such a different age than what I'm talking to, so if you are interested in talking more about literacy, I can do another video on that. We can talk about that, how you can help your child improve their literacy, phonics versus phonemic awareness, all of that. So thank you for watching. If you have any questions, please contact me on Katie Hickman Theater Facebook page. If you want more content like this is all being uploaded, as well as more supplemental materials are being put on my Patreon, which is patreon.com/Katie, C-A-D-Y, Hickman. Thank you so much for watching. I hope I gave you some awesome things to think about, and I'll see you next time.